In the words of someone who has a buttload more subscribers than me, anime is a brand. Therefore, RWBY is an anime. Ah, frick. RWBY, produced by Rooster Teeth, features distinct character designs, a unique world that blends both sci-fi and fantasy, and awesome action sequences. So yeah, I guess you could say I'm a fan. I was ecstatic when I found out that there was a Figma-style figure of Ruby Rose, especially since the only other articulated figures of RWBY characters are styled like creepy dolls.
Come on in here.
Let's go ahead and get her out of the box and take a look. Included with the figure is several accessories, a stand, which you can take apart for some reason, I don't know why you can do this, and of course, RWBY's iconic crescent rose. The paintwork on this figure is on par with Max Factory's Figma line, and the sculpt isn't that far behind either. One thing I am disappointed in though is that this figure doesn't come with a smiling alternate face. RWBY's such a happy character, and not having her smile severely limits the figure's ability to express her personality. Not only that, but the yelling face definitely leaves a lot to be desired. The sculpt isn't made nearly as well as a Figma's would be. It would be more forgivable if the dang eyebrows actually matched the rest of the expression. It looks like she's going, ah, instead of, it definitely makes it harder for this figure to be expressive. In terms of posability though, it's surprisingly good. The skirt does get in the way at times.
It's a combat skirt. Yeah.
Combat skirt, whatever. Even though it's segmented, the skirt is really rigid, making it difficult to pose her legs. Her cape is also segmented, although it has a lot more freedom of motion than her skirt. It is extremely heavy, however, so you basically can't stand her up without the included stand. You can't tilt her head up very far, but you can tilt it down a decent amount. The shoulders of her cloak are on a ball joint towards the back, meaning they won't get in the way of her shoulders if you want to angle her arms upward. The double ball joint in her shoulder as well as the ball joint in her elbow allow for a fairly standard degree of freedom. Her wrists are also fairly standard in their ability to flex forward and backward and rotate. Waist rotation checks out. Like me, she has trouble doing crunches and arching her back. As mentioned, her legs can't move very far forward or backward because of her skirt, but at least she can do the splits as well as I can. Jeez, I should probably do some Pilates or something. The knees can bend to 90 degrees, the calves can rotate fairly well, the feet can bend up that far and down that far, and they can rotate as well as have a decent pivot. Her cape can go out about that far and have a truly magnificent spread.
Oh my.
Moving on to her accessories, let's start with Crescent Rose. There are two versions of Crescent Rose, and they're very well made. I'm sure some of you would be disappointed with the fact that Crescent Rose doesn't actually transform and fold out, but seeing as it's literally physically impossible, I'll give it a pass. They're very well made, although the bottom bit on the folded out one is a bit loose for my tastes. The folded up version can be stowed on the back of RWBY's belt, just like in the show, which is very cool. Although, it's a bit hard to attach it from behind, so I'd recommend removing her cape, placing it on the back, and then replacing her cape. The silver rose can be changed out for this cross, but I don't ever remember her having a cross instead of a rose.
RWBY absolutely had a cross at one point.
What the? I told you I'm recording. Also, she did not.
Did too.
Bull crap.
Look it up.
Alright, fine. Son of a... It does fall off pretty easily, so be careful not to lose it. Of course, knowing my track record with losing things, and it's gone. Frick. She also comes with these holding hands. Hands when used to pose crescent rows, including a trigger finger. Fists, of course, jazz hands. And these pair of hands I've dubbed default hands, because they're the ones that she comes out of the box with. I have no idea if it's my copy of the figure specifically, but these holding hands are really difficult to get on crescent rows. Half the time I was afraid I was going to break something trying to get them on. And I would highly recommend putting on the hands first and then attaching them to RWBY's wrists if you're going to try to have her hold crescent rows. Also, some copies of the stand might have weak joints, not unlike my mother. But not to worry. Unlike most typical stands, you can actually tighten the screws on this one, which is really handy. And before we wrap things up, let's see how she stacks up in terms of size. Here's Revoltech Gunbuster, Figma Samus Aran, and the Masterpiece Transformers Soundwave. And for no reason in particular, here's the PlayArt Kai Master Chief. And now it's time for the final verdict. Medicos did a good job of making a figure that is comparable to a Figma, both in style and in price. However, the following first world problems prevent me from giving it a higher score. The alternate face is disappointing, the waist joint is too loose, the holding hands are too tight, swapping the hands can be annoying, swapping the head is a nightmare, and the skirt is too rigid. Even so, I would highly recommend it to fans of RWBY, especially if you want an articulated figure. And you know, if Medicos made a figure of the other members of Team RWBY, I would definitely buy it.